it's very cold outside. It is sunny, but it is still very, very cold. It's just above freezing. So there is actually nothing that I need to do or really want to do out in the garden in this temperature. So what I thought I would do instead is I'd make some biscuits. Now, my children and my husband eat a lot of biscuits, and the ones that you buy in the shop are very nice, but it's always nice to make your own. They're not as complicated as you think they are. You can find a recipe, either follow it to the letter, or you can adjust it slightly. Now, I like to adjust these things slightly and make them my own. Now, I'm going to show you today a shortbread recipe, a basic shortbread recipe that you can then adapt and add different things in. I've been looking and searching for years and years to try and find a really nice shortbread recipe where the biscuit is nice and crumbly. You sort of bite through it and it breaks really easily, and it just sort of melts in the mouth. I've tried all sorts of different ones, and only recently, the last couple of weeks, I have finally found a recipe, a shortbread recipe that does exactly what I want it to do. So I thought I would share that with you today. Now, I've got my big mixer here. If you don't have a big mixer like I've got, you can always do this in a bowl with a wooden spoon, or if you've got a little hand mixer, you can do it in a bowl with one of those. I am doubling the recipe that I have that's written in the book, or the basic bits of it, because I'm going to cook some now. And I'm going to then freeze some more of it. Cookie dough freezes very, very well, and I will show you later on how I freeze mine. So the first thing that I've done is I've put the oven on to gas mark 4 or 180 degrees, or whatever the other one is, because I can't remember. And what I'm going to do in this bowl, I have got 400 grams of sugar, and I have got 500 grams of margarine. And all I'm going to do is I am going to beat those two together until they are light and fluffy. So start the mixer off low. Otherwise, if you start it off too quick, your margarine will fly out of the dish, the mixer. And then when it's started to combine, then you can put it up a little faster and just leave it to mix like this. Make sure all the sugar is combined into the margarine, and leave it like this for about 5 minutes. It will go a slightly lighter yellow colour, and it will look nice and light and fluffy. Now, hopefully you can see that the mixture in here has now gone a slightly lighter yellow colour, and it's nice and light and fluffy. Now, whilst this is mixing, you can get the rest of your ingredients ready. In this little bowl here, I've got 2 egg yolks and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And what we're going to do is I'm going to add this, the eggs and the vanilla, very slowly to the butter and the sugar mixture whilst the beater is on, so that it incorporates really well. You want to do it slowly so that it can be incorporated into the mixture and it doesn't curdle. Now, in this bowl here, what I've got is 600 grams of plain flour. I've got 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, and I've got 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now, I'm going to just combine those so that they are mixed up, just gently. Just do it with your hands, just so that they're all mixed nice and evenly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the mixer on low and very slowly add the flour mixture into the butter, sugar, egg and vanilla extract mixture. Now put the mixer on low and slowly add in the flour. Only add it in a little bit at a time, otherwise it won't combine. And when the last of the flour is in, mix until it's just combined and then switch it off. Right, so that is your basic shortbread mixture. Now you can add whatever you want, whether you want to add chocolate chips, chocolate pieces, dried cranberries, dried cherries, a mixture of nuts. It's entirely up to you. So always add the dried fruit. Don't ever add fresh fruit, because fresh fruit has too much moisture in it and it will ruin the biscuits. So you can pick any dried fruits, any dried nuts, or any chocolate, whether you want white or plain or milk, whatever you want to do. Now you need to put a combination of what you're going to put in next as a maximum of 200 grams. Don't put any more in. So decide what you're going to do. You might want to do some cranberries and some white chocolate. So maybe have half the dried cranberries and half of the chocolate. So that makes up your 200 grams. So it's entirely up to you what you want. I've got some apricots here. I've got some cranberries with macadamias. I've got cranberries on their own. I've got some cherries, and I've also got some mixed nuts. So it's entirely up to you what you want to do. And I've also got some chocolate. So I think what I will do today is I will do 100 grams of cranberries, and I will do 100 grams of milk chocolate. So in this bowl, what I've got is 100 grams of dried cranberries, and to that I'm going to add 100 grams of chocolate. You can use chocolate chips if you want. Chocolate chips have stabilizers in them, which means that they won't lose their shape. But in these cookies, I have to admit, I think having chocolate and cutting it up, it's lovely because it bleeds through the cookie. So obviously I'm not going to put it in like that. I'm going to just cut it up into small pieces using a sharp knife. Be very careful with your fingers, because you want to make sure that you don't cut your fingers. So I tend to find that doing it at an angle is better than doing it straight along like this. So cut some and push down, and then it'll come off in different sizes. Okay, and when you've got some like that, turn it round and then you can cut it across, so you can, oops, I lost that bit. So you can actually, you get all sorts of different sized chunks, and I think it looks much better like that. So I'm going to, once I've cut the chocolate, I'm going to add it into with the cranberries. So when you've got your 200 grams of whatever flavourings you're going to put in your shortbread, put your mixer on, or if you are using a mixer, put it on low. If you're using a bowl with a wooden spoon, then you can just fold it in, but put the mixture on low, otherwise it'll all start flinging out. And when all of this is combined, when it's just combined, switch the mixer off. Now, before you start scooping out your cookies, make sure that you mix, you give the mixture with a spatula. Use a spatula and make sure you give it a good mix round, because there's an awful lot in here, and sometimes the stuff down the bottom of the bowl doesn't get incorporated well. It also helps distribute the ingredients that you've put, the extra special bits, so therefore my cranberries and my chocolate throughout the cookie dough. Now, the way to get your cookies exactly the same size is to use an ice cream scoop. I've been using an ice cream scoop for a very long time. In fact, I have 3 different ice cream scoops. I have a small one. This is the medium one, which is about 1.5 inches across, I guess. And I also have a large one. I find that the medium one makes perfect size cookies. They will end up being about 3 inches across, which is just the right size for a cookie in my opinion. So you just use your ice cream scoop to put them on the tray. So let me show you how I do that. Right, so get your ice cream scoop, put it in the dough mixture and push it towards the side. Get some cookie dough in the scoop, push it towards the side and push it up. And therefore it's then full. And all you need to do then is to just squeeze the handle and it will plop out onto the tray. Now make sure you don't put these too close together because they spread quite a lot. You don't want to end up with one sheet full of cookie dough. I mean, maybe you do, but personally I prefer individual cookies. So on a tray this size, I will only put 6 on, and I tend to find that 6 is just enough, and then they don't touch each other. You could possibly squeeze 7 on, but make sure that there's a good couple of inches between each blob. Now I'm going to carry on and I'm going to do 4 trays of cookies, and then I'm going to tell you about when to put them in the oven. So here are my 4 trays of cookies. I've just put them on normal baking parchment. They won't stick to that. So I'm going to put 2 trays in the oven at a time. As I say, they're on gas mark 4 or 180 or whatever the equivalent is in the other one. Can't remember. I'm going to put 1 on the middle shelf and 1 on one slightly lower in the oven. I'm going to leave them in the oven there for about, they'll take about 20 minutes to cook, but halfway through the cooking time I will swap them over. Now you may well be wondering, what am I going to do with the rest of this cookie dough? Now cookie dough freezes very, very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop out the rest of this. I'm going to lie it, put the little blobs all along this tray, and then I'm going to put the tray and all the cookie bits in the deep freeze. Leave them there until tomorrow morning, and then I will take each one out and I will then store them in a plastic container like this, and they will store in the deep freeze for at least 3 months. So if your biscuits are running low and you need some more, you just take out how many you need, you put them on your tray, leave them to defrost for about an hour, and then you can cook them in exactly the same way. So here are the ones that I'm going to put in the deep freeze. As I say, I will leave them in the deep freeze on the tray like this for a day or until tomorrow morning. And then I will go, and by that time these would have frozen individually, and then I can pick each individual cookie mound up very easily, and then I will store them in a plastic tub and write on the top what flavour they are, and then they can stay in the deep freeze for up to 3 months, but I can see myself baking these off in the next couple of days. Now you know when your biscuits are ready because they have gone slightly brown round the outside and a little bit brown in the middle. Make sure they don't go any darker than this, otherwise they will taste burnt. So these 2 trays are ready, so I'll take those out, and then I'll put the other 2 trays in and cook those in exactly the same way. Well, I've just taken the last couple of trays out of the oven. Leave them on the tray for about 10 minutes because they'll be very soft when they come out the oven. So they need to go become a little bit firmer. So just leave them on the tray for about 10 minutes and they'll cool down and then they'll firm up and then you'll be able to move them. You can either leave them to cool completely on the parchment paper, or after the 10 minutes of letting them cool down, you can very carefully move them over to a cooling rack. Eat what you're going to eat and then store the rest in a biscuit barrel. They won't last long, I'm telling you that now. I expect these will be gone within 2 days and then I'll have to bake some more off. But if you've got lots of people coming to visit you, especially over the Christmas, you can do the base recipe and then just add in whatever fillings you want to. So if you know that you're going to have lots and lots of visitors in the afternoon, you can just get some of the frozen cookie balls out of the freezer, leave them to defrost for an hour and then bake them off, and then you'll have fresh cookies before your guests arrive that they can have in their tea. I'm not a dunker. I don't agree with that at all. And I don't want to start an argument about whether you should dunk or shouldn't dunk. I don't dunk, but I know there are people who do. Whether these are dunking biscuits or not, I would say not, because they are quite crumbly and they would most probably just disintegrate quite quickly. But they are very, very tasty and very yummy. Well, I hope you give those a go. And I hope your guests enjoy them. The house will smell wonderful and there'll be a right treat for people when they come and see you. Well, I hope you found that useful and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.